The little girl asking for help, his reaction touched everyone's heart. The city was noisy, a concrete beehive filled with hurried footsteps and echoes stretching far. It was a day like any other when the world felt both vast and indifferent. Then a small, fragile voice, as delicate as a sparrow's wing, cut through the noise. "Excuse me, sir." A man named Ethan, known more for his calm demeanor than any grand statements, turned his head. He was not someone who expected to be noticed. Not in this city, not by anyone. But then, there she was, her eyes like deep pools of flickering hope, looking up at him. Her clothes were faded, her shoes worn and frayed, but it was the pleading look on her face that made him stop. "Sir, could you help me?" she asked, her voice trembling with fears unspoken. What happened next was not a dramatic display, not a grand gesture for cameras. It was something quieter, deeper. It was the spontaneous moment when one heart met another in need. Ethan had not anticipated this encounter, but he did not hesitate. He was not like so many in this world who hurried past, eyes fixed on the pavement, ears deaf to silent cries. He was just walking, another face in the crowd, his hands buried deep in the pockets of an old coat. As he passed by a narrow alley, he noticed a small figure curled up in the shadows. At first, it was nothing more than a blur against the dark brick walls, but as he drew closer, he heard the faint plea. He stopped, his attention captured by the little girl. She was tiny, perhaps 6 or 7 years old, wearing a pale pink dress that had long since lost its color. Her hair was unkempt, her face smudged with dirt, but there was a vulnerability in her that tugged at his heart. Ethan knelt down, the city's noise fading into the background, Die replaced by the steady beat of his own heart. "How can I help you?" he asked gently, his voice soft yet steady. The little girl clasped her small hands together, a silent plea. She looked down, then back up at him, searching his eyes. "Please, sir, can you help me? I'm hungry, and my mother is sick," her voice barely audible amid the rhythm of the bustling city. Ethan's heart sank. A heavy silence hung between them, weighted by her words, by the desperation clinging to her like a shadow. Her tiny frame seemed even more fragile, her eyes carrying a sorrow no child should bear. He stood up, his gaze scanning the surroundings. A part of him wanted to walk away, to return to his daily routine, but something held him back. The world was full of people in need, yet there was something about this moment, so raw, so undeniable. He looked down at her again, into the deep sadness etched in her young eyes. "Where is your mother?" he asked gently. "She's in the park," the girl replied, "but I can't bring her here. She's too weak to walk. I don't know what to do."
The burden of responsibility fell upon Ethan, not as a weight, but as a calling. He had been in this city long enough to know how many people turned away, how many cries went unheard, but he was not like them. He gave a simple nod. "Come with me." The little girl hesitated, her wide eyes filled with both doubt and hope. But after a moment, she stepped forward, her small hand reaching out to grasp his with cautious trust. He led her to a small cafe nearby, where the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee and warm bread filled the air. He gestured to the barista, a woman with kind eyes, to prepare some sandwiches and drinks while he sat, watching the girl. They sat together by the window, the outside world a moving canvas of colors, while inside they existed in a quiet bubble of understanding. She ate, her hunger almost frantic. Ethan didn't say much, but his presence was a comfort, a silent reassurance that she was not alone. The moment felt sacred, as if nothing in the world mattered more than this simple act of kindness. When she finished, she wiped her face, her eyes softer as she looked at him. "Thank you, sir," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You're the first person to help me today. I didn't know what else to do." Ethan smiled, a warm, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "No one should go hungry, and no one should feel alone," he said, his voice steady and calm. "Now, let's go see your mother." She looked up at him, her eyes widening in surprise. She was used to people turning away, waving her off. But not Ethan. He did not see a child to be pitied. He saw a person, a life deserving of compassion. He stood up, gently helping her to her feet, and together they stepped out of the cafe. He had no idea of the ripples he had set in motion, waves that would travel far beyond this moment. All that mattered was that she was no longer alone, and for now, that was enough. They walked side by side, her small hand gripping his tightly. As they moved through the city, it seemed as though the world had quieted, the noise fading to make space for their journey. They arrived at the park, once lively and bustling, now draped in a hushed stillness. The trees swayed, their shadows stretching out in distorted shapes across the pathway. The girl led him to a secluded corner near the fountain, where her mother sat, slumped and frail, her head bowed low. Ethan approached slowly, his heart tightening. The woman's thin frame was almost ghostly, a stark contrast to the vibrant energy of the park. "Mom, Mom," the girl called softly. "I brought someone to help you." The woman lifted her head slowly, her weary eyes meeting Ethan's. There was a flicker of hope in her gaze, a trace of surprise. Ethan knelt before her, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice full of concern. Her lips trembled as she spoke. "I can't get out of bed. I have no money for food. I don't know what to do," she murmured, each word an effort. Ethan's heart broke. He had seen this kind of despair before, but this time, it was different. It wasn't just about money or food. It was about giving them something more, a way out of the darkness. He reached into his wallet and gave the woman what he could, enough to cover immediate needs. But money wasn't the most important thing. It was the gesture, the act of seeing them, of acknowledging their existence. "I will make sure you have what you need," he said, his voice steady. "We can find some help for you. You don't have to go through this alone." The woman blinked, surprise and relief mixing in her eyes. In a world where so many walked past, ignoring those in need, Ethan had stopped, had seen them, had acted. The little girl's eyes shone with gratitude. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. You really helped us." Ethan gave a gentle smile. "No one should feel alone," he replied. "Let's get both of you somewhere safe." He helped the woman to her feet, and together, the three of them walked toward a nearby medical center. Their journey was slow, but with each step, the mother and daughter became less alone, less burdened by despair. As they walked, Ethan reflected on the power of simple kindness. The world was full of struggles, of invisible battles, but when someone stopped, when someone cared, it could change everything. It wasn't about being a hero. It was about being human, about recognizing the humanity in others. For Ethan, it was just a day of being himself. But for this family, it was a day that would change their lives forever. The ripple effect of his kindness continued, unseen but undeniable. As they moved through the streets, something about Ethan's quiet presence seemed to shift the air around them. People slowed down, tilting their heads slightly as they passed, perhaps wondering what had just happened. The mother walked a little taller, her shoulders less hunched, not carrying the weight of the world, but a new glimmer of hope. The little girl clung tightly to Ethan's hand, her tiny fingers wrapped around his, a lifeline amidst the chaos. At the medical center, Ethan did not leave them to fate. He ensured the staff understood the situation, that the family received the care and support they needed. He stayed with them, a steady presence amid the bustling activity. When they were finally settled and the mother was resting, Ethan sat in the waiting area, reflecting on the day. His small act had created a ripple, not just in this family's life, but across the city. He wondered how many other lives had been subtly changed by the choices they had made today. A nurse approached, her eyes filled with sincere gratitude. "Thank you for helping them," she said softly. "It's rare to see someone take the time, especially for someone like her." Ethan nodded, offering a gentle smile. "It was the least I could do. No one should have to go through this alone." The nurse glanced toward the family in the corner. The mother and daughter looked more at ease, the desperation that had clung to them just hours ago, now replaced with a quiet sense of peace. "You've made a bigger difference than you realize," she said. "Sometimes a small act of kindness can change everything." Ethan's smile deepened, but he did not need praise. His mind was focused on the moment, on how the little girl and her mother seemed transformed. It wasn't just about material help. It was about acknowledgement, about being seen, about someone caring enough to stop and listen. As he left, Ethan glanced back at the family, no longer weighed down by despair. They still needed help, but they were no longer alone. He stepped out of the medical center, the nurse's words echoing in his mind. The world was full of others like them, people in need of kindness, and the more he gave, the more that kindness spread. As Ethan walked back into the city, a sense of peace washed over him. He had not set out to change the world, but somehow it had changed just a little. He knew that every small act of kindness created ripples, and those ripples could spread further than anyone could imagine. He continued on his journey, feeling that something inside him had shifted. The simple act of helping the mother and daughter had left a mark on his heart, an indelible reminder of the profound impact of compassion. And as he walked away, his quiet kindness continued to ripple outward. That evening, as he strolled through the park, a young man approached him, his face weary and somber. He hesitated before speaking. "I saw what you did earlier with the little girl and her mother. I just wanted to say thank you." Ethan looked at him, his expression calm and curious. "Thank you?" The young man nodded, his voice unsteady. "Yes, I saw you stop to help them without hesitation. I've been struggling for a while now, and seeing someone do something like that, it made me think. I've been so caught up in my own problems, but what you did reminded me that there's still kindness in this world, that we don't have to be so focused on ourselves to help others." Ethan was silent for a moment. The young man's words moved him more than he had expected. Realizing that his actions had touched someone else, someone who had been struggling, brought a deeper understanding. "You don't need to thank me," he said softly, "but I'm glad it made a difference for you." The young man gave a small, grateful smile. "It did. I think I'm going to start looking for ways to help others. I've been too wrapped up in my own life, and I forgot about the bigger picture." Ethan nodded, a quiet smile forming on his lips. Sometimes, helping others reminds us of what truly matters. It doesn't take much. Just a small moment of kindness can make all the difference. As the young man walked away, a quiet sense of fulfillment filled Ethan's chest. He had done nothing extraordinary, but in that moment, he understood how one act of kindness could create a chain reaction. The ripple was no longer just about the little girl and her mother. It was spreading, like waves across the ocean, reaching beyond Ethan's sight. As the sun began to set, Ethan's thoughts turned inward. He wondered how many others had witnessed that same moment and had been inspired by it. Perhaps some had smiled, or extended a helping hand, or simply felt a shift in their hearts. He didn't need an answer. He just knew that doing good had a ripple effect, one that was vast and powerful. With that realization, he turned and continued his walk, the world around him feeling quieter, more connected. He knew that, in his own small way, he had helped create something bigger than just a single moment. That, he realized, was the true power of kindness. Days passed. Ethan continued with his life, helping where he could, his kindness given quietly, in ways few would ever see. The ripple effect of his actions continued to unfold. One morning, as he walked through another part of the city, he saw the young man from the park again. This time, the young man was with a group of friends, all of them laughing and chatting. When he spotted Ethan, his face lit up and he called out, "Hey, it's you! I just wanted to say what you did for that family. It really made me rethink everything. I started volunteering at a shelter nearby. It's not much, but it feels good to do something for others." Ethan smiled warmly. He was genuinely happy for the young man. His friends looked at Ethan with curiosity. "So you're the one who inspired him?" one of them asked. "You helped that family, right? We saw it on the news the other day. They were talking about you, about what you did." Ethan was surprised. He had never sought recognition, but he simply nodded. "I didn't do it for recognition," he said. "I just did what felt right." The young man's friend smiled. "Well, it worked. You sparked something in him, and now we're all talking about helping people too. Maybe we'll volunteer together. Who knows where this could lead?" Ethan watched as the group continued down the street, their excitement filling the air. It wasn't about recognition. It was about the fact that a small moment of kindness had ignited a movement, a tiny ripple that had turned into a wave. The day carried on like any other. But Ethan knew that this was no longer just a story about helping one family. It was about the power of a simple act to create a chain reaction, one he would never fully know the reach of. As he passed by the place where he had first met the little girl and her mother, memories flooded back. He smiled, thinking about the difference they had made in each other's lives. And then he realized something even more powerful. He saw a man helping an elderly woman with her groceries. A small moment of kindness passed from one person to another. He could feel the ripple, and for the first time in a long while, he realized something profound. The world was full of good people doing good things. As long as people continued to help one another, that ripple would keep growing. His work here was done. Though he wouldn't always be there to witness the results, he now understood that the greatest gift one could give was kindness. No matter how small, it was the little things that truly made a difference. Ethan kept walking, the weight of his kindness lingering in the air. Across the city, that ripple continued to spread, slowly but surely, making the world a better place, one small act of kindness at a time.